Alrighty, and here we go with our first round. So, on the play, have a great hand, definitely a keep, especially on the play. I mean, it's a little reactive and slow, but on the play we should be fine. So here, we're definitely just going to lead on Colonnade, since first of all we don't know what we're playing against, so we're not sure what we're scrying to the top with certain visions. More importantly though, we just want to lead on our Colonnade because it's a tap land. If we did have an easy way to cast certain visions with this hand, we would probably just cycle it because we have so much card draw and things to do with our mana. We would want to start emptying our hand. So Seachrome Coast CERN Visions is definitely an indicator of ad nauseum because those cards are, well, Seachrome Coast isn't that common first of all, and when you see it with CERN Visions it's probably ad nauseum. Of course it could just be like blue-white control or something strange. Could always be something strange in Modern. That's always an option. So here just leaving up Logic Knot. The idea is that we can counter a Pentad Prism or more cycle. If we know it's ad nauseum, it might just be better to CERN Visions because really the only thing that we would want to counter is Pentad Prism, and that's because our opponent didn't have a Lotus Bloom suspended on turn 1, so denying their mana is pretty good. Maybe in retrospect double CERN Visions is just better, and turns out it would have been, since our opponent just Temples of Enlightenment, but this is fine anyways. Even though we drew another CERN Visions, we'll be able to fire them all off pretty easily. And we see Jace and Colonnade, and we draw another land. So we definitely don't need the Colonnade, we have enough land. The Jace, on the other hand, is going to be good, since it appears our opponent won't be able to go off, especially since we're keeping up Logic Knot again this turn to counter any shenanigans, which leaves us open to just slam Jace, which we're going to do. Obviously we could potentially die to multiple Simian Spirit Guides, but can't play that scared against ad nauseum. So we minus Jace, get Esper Charm, Snapcaster Mage. So we don't need to land that much. The Esper Charm is actually pretty good because it blows up Phyrexian Unlife. The Snapcaster Mage is going to be really good with Logic Knot though, so it's kind of a tricky pick here. The Esper Charm discarding 2 cards is also very good, since, I mean, instant speed interaction is pretty good. I decided to go with the Snapcaster though, since it's basically another counterspell with Logic Knot, which is going to be really good if we untap here. Which we do. Not dying is pretty good. And we draw Cryptic Command, which isn't exactly the card we want to see. So here we're close to having Logic Knot and Cryptic Command, or Logic Knot and Snapcaster. Logic Knot, which is important to have 2 counters. We don't really need to minus Jace this turn because we already have a full hand. So we're going to be plussing Jace and CERN Visionsing. Land on the bottom, Esper Charm on the top. Esper Charm's still going to be instant speed interaction that's relevant. And leaving up Cryptic Command. Could have CERN Visionsed again, but not really that much point in doing it. I mean, our hand's already pretty good. Although our opponent is reaching like a critical mass of just cards where they might be able to push through whatever we do, because I mean our deck is very reactive. They're gonna get plenty of time to just set up for whatever they want. And here, again, we have 7 cards in hand. So just plussing Jace because we don't really need anything. Now we can Logic Knot and Cryptic Command. And suspend Lotus Bloom and plays a tapped land. So the issue we're facing here, like our last turn end step, we could have Cryptic Command, bounced an opponent's land, but they would have just won with Simian Spirit Guide, Angel's Grace ad nauseum. Now we can start casting spells with Logic Knot backup. Like we can Esper Charm with Logic Knot backup, although that isn't the safest option still. Because now, I mean, our opponent has 6 cards. If they have Simian Spirit Guide, ad nauseum, Angel's Grace, and Pact of Negation, if we Esper Charm, we are going to just lose because they'll be able to pact our Logic Knot and go off. The issue is that we're not really advancing our board state that much. I decide to Esper Charm, making my opponent discard because, I mean, if this resolves, they're going to be down to 4 cards and we will be in a pretty good spot. So they do have Simian Spirit Guide and Angel's Grace and ad nauseum, which is completely reasonable. So we attempt to Logic Knot, and they have a Pact of Negation, and now we're just dead because we tapped out to having only 1 counterspell. I think this was fine, but maybe a little bit too aggressive in retrospect, since we have Jace, we have land drops, and we have multiple counters, and our opponent is just sort of drawing a card each turn and playing a land. So probably should have played more conservatively, and it did end up costing us. It's definitely a tricky dance, and then we get Lightning Stormed once our opponent draws their entire deck. So I think that was my bad. And it's unfortunate too, because we actually drew very well against ad nauseum for game 1. We didn't really draw any paths or fatal pushes. So I mean, in theory, game 1 should be our hardest game, because we have all these dead cards that we can now get rid of in sideboarding. And Supreme Verdicts. Wow, yeah, we drew really well and still died. Although that was kind of more our fault than anything. Probably played a little bit too aggressively there and got punished. But now we're going to get to just go crazy upgrades to all of our cards and have a good post board for sure. So relics are not good, but they are an option to just draw a card. Stony Silence is going to hit Pentad Prism and Lotus Bloom, which is really good. Engineered Explosives also hits Pentad Prism and Lotus Bloom, although it's not that effective against either of them, but it also hits Phyrexian Unlife, which is important as well. So for sure the negates, the dispels, the thought seizes, those are pure gold, and for sure we just don't want any of these cards and are just fine with the rest of our main deck. So it's pretty much the most straightforward sideboarding against such a linear deck as ad nauseum. So we have 11 cards we want to get rid of, and 5 cards we're fine bringing in, so we just need like one bad card basically in Relic that is detrimental to cycle more than anything, but at least it draws a card versus like being an absolute nothing card. So yeah, we don't want to draw Relic, but probably still worth bringing in. And then a great hand. I mean, just so much interaction on the play. Definitely keeping. And just go for the Watergrave Thoughtseizes. And so normally in this type of matchup you'd be happy to hold on to Thoughtseizes. The issue is Lotus Bloom is something you want to take on turn one. Like with this sort of hand, if Lotus Bloom wasn't a consideration, we'd be just happy holding on to Thoughtseize for a couple turns and being able to get more information and potentially a juicier card to discard. But say our opponent had no lands, 2 Lotus Blooms, and we take a Lotus Bloom, we just like win on the spot. Or 1 land Lotus Bloom or something strange. So yeah, their hand is not that great. I mean, sure, it's a bunch of cards, and we are Thoughtseizing one of them. So we're probably just taking Serum Visions here every time because their hand is so weak. We do not want them to draw good cards. Of course, they are going to draw good cards naturally. So we drew 2 Cryptics, which is completely fine. I mean, our opponent is not going to be able to interact very well with these. So we just don't really want to let Mystical Teachings resolve. If possible, we want to have up to spell for it. So just keeping up our counter magic. Like, we don't need to be bouncing anything. And there's a Lotus Bloom, which of course is tricky to catch if you aren't looking for it. Magic Online does not particularly tell you if it's being suspended. So we wanna have a plan, because our opponent is probably going to be setting up to do something around Lotus Bloom, so we want to be ready by then. So just bottoming 2 lands with Serum Visions. And still just happy to play it slow here. We don't want our opponent to Simian Spirit Guide Mystical Teachings if we bounce a land with Cryptic Command. But now we have enough good stuff that we can start bouncing lands with Cryptic Command for sure. So we just do that on upkeep. And opponent sleight of hands, and we're even just happy to negate that. Don't really want any sort of interaction from our opponent, and we have Snapcaster to flashback Cryptic. So our opponent Thoughtseizes, sure, that's fine. And Lotus Bloom. So Lotus Bloom is a bit of an issue because our opponent is so low on lands. We do not want this to resolve. We could have paid 2 and Snapcaster Cryptic the Lotus Bloom. Of course, that would have opened us up to Pact of Negation, and then Angel's Grace. We lose. So it's kind of a delicate dance we're playing here. We're giving up value by Snapcaster negating here, but we will have double the spell backup because of it, which we're definitely going to go for. So our opponent, Mystical Teachings. So of course we could dispel this Mystical Teachings right now, but since our opponent is doing this now, we're assuming they're getting a Pact of Negation, which we would much rather just have resolve, because then our opponent is going to lose the game. So, And we can just dispel whatever they get anyways. So yeah, they get Pact of Negation. They Pact of Negation or dispel. So we let that resolve first of all, which is a great little interaction. When there's multiple pacts and you're in a counter war, you can just let a pact resolve and then start countering stuff. So yeah, now we dispel the second pact, which lets the negate resolve, and now they have, at beginning of your next upkeep, pay 5 or you lose the game. And we actually have a nice little clock with Colonnade, or never mind, we have Cryptic Command, which is just as good. Here I could have actually bounced Plains just to play around ad nauseum, or Angel's Grace, protecting this pact, and it would have blown up a gemstone mine. So that probably was a bit of an oversight. I was just so happy to draw Cryptic, I think. I think that would have been probably worth it. I mean, bouncing Snapcaster with Cryptic is also pretty good. And so we're not really sure what's in our opponent's hand. We don't want to let them get up to Mystical Teachings flashback, and Esper Charm is great. Happy to just draw. We don't care that much what's in our opponent's hand as long as we have counter magic up. And we're pretty safe, so happy to just activate Colonnade and really put the pressure on our opponent. And draw Snapcaster, which I mean, we're already threatening 2-turn clock even without activating Colonnade this turn, so we're gonna play it safe and potentially do some things in our opponent's end step as well. I mean, we have plenty of protection. And just bounce that. And Thoughtseize. I mean, I could have activated Colonnade, but that potentially leaves us open to dying, so Thoughtseizing is just safer. Like, we are not losing this game if we just play carefully based on the amount of counter magic we have. Alright, so game 3, another great hand. We've had great hands non-stop, great hands. And our opponent actually mulligans. Make sure we catch any hidden Lotus Blooms. Yep. Turn 1 Lotus Bloom, good start. There's Engineered Explosives, which can fight against Lotus Bloom on 0. Of course, they can just combo off in their upkeep. So, not particularly relevant. I think we topped a Serum Visions and bottomed a land. Or bottomed something that we didn't want. Alright, our opponent tops, which is not what we want to see. And just decide to go with Serum Visions. Like, we have Esper Charm to blow up Phyrexian Unlife, so we're happy to just continue cycling while Lotus Bloom isn't in play. And we don't really care if Pentad Prism resolves because our opponent should have tons of mana anyways. So bottom the Colonnade since we're up to 4 mana, and keep the Think Twice because good card draw. Good card draw. Alright, so taking our Logic Knot is definitely scary because now our shields are down. The thing we have going for us, though, is our opponent has 3 cards, and we have Esper Charm. And you know what beats ad nauseum is them not having 2 cards in hand. It's because they cannot combo off. So making them discard there is incredibly safe. Obviously, they could keep ad nauseum and draw Angel's Grace, and then we exactly die. So it looks like their hand was pretty bad. And now we're in a good spot. And they didn't have the perfects, and sleight of hand can't even get them there. And they even have another land, so their hand was just awful. Of course, we are afraid of dying, which, I mean, we're in a great spot this game, but we're going to be afraid of dying the entire rest of the game to perfect top decks if we tap out. Of course, we can afford to be safe right now. The issue is that as the game goes on, we're going to become more and more afraid of tapping out as our opponent draws more cards. So there we can just think twice. We still have Dispel up for ad nauseum. Alright, so Dredge Brief, I mean, our opponent has land for days and days. So Serum Visions, we're definitely interacting with. Like, we are so far ahead in card advantage, we just want to basically deny our opponent trying to set up a good hand. And another Cryptic is A-OK. And Sleight of Hand, happy to counter that as well. And still in a good spot, just playing cautiously since we don't want to accidentally tap out and give our opponent like a 5% chance of winning, because that would be bad. So here we actually kind of can't Snapcaster efficiently with Cryptic Command, because of course that would tap us out and lead us to potentially dying. We kind of just want to keep making land drops, and here we can profitably just Jace, because we have Negate Dispel, and we're happy to take the Esper Charm. We just want to attack our opponent's hand and stop any potential of us dying. And now Dreadship Brief is on 5 counters. Okay, Thoughtseize is definitely makes us feel safe, and it turns out our opponent just has nothing, and we've been fearful for no reason. Alright, and we make them discard, get rid of Lightning Storm and Simian Spirit Guide, which really doesn't matter at this point. And Relic here is obviously not that great. Handful of answers, opponent at 1 card in hand but can't close out the game. So plussing Jace, don't really need more cards. What we need more so is a way to close out the game, which Snapcaster does. So we make our opponent discard, and we're also kind of playing around top deck Mystical Teachings, which at this point would be so much, since our opponent has so much mana, they could like cast Mystical Teaching, flashback Mystical Teachings, and then still combo off. So our opponent just pacting a Stony Silence, which, I mean, isn't even that relevant, but if we can Stony Silence and then bounce Dreadship Brief, then our opponent just doesn't have mana. And they finally pack it in, as we have infinite defenses. And the slow grind of Esper chews through ad nauseum.